As of October 2022, student loan debt has hit $1.745 trillion. This number is hard to even fathom. In fact, actually, the current ticker says that we are over $2 trillion. If you want to see the crazy just vastness of this number, you can go to collegedebt.com and you can just see the number changing every single second. So that said, it is affecting Americans all across the nation. It is affecting not just the college graduation generations, but their parents, their grandparents. So this is a very important topic. It's not a fun topic, but it is critical to listen to if you're a student, if you have family members heading to college, if your student is heading to college, or even if you're heading to college. Now, they say that the average student loan debt is just under $35,000 per student, but this is for public school students. This does not include private school students. And honestly, the numbers that we see are a lot more than this. I'm seeing 60, 70, 80, even six figures in student loan debt that students are borrowing. So in today's video, I don't want it to be all doom and gloom. I'm going to share with you some of the consequences of student loan debt, but I'm also going to share specific tangible actions that your family can take to help minimize these consequences. Now make sure you hit subscribe because every single week I release a new strategy on how to minimize or completely avoid that student loan debt. Hey there, my name is Jocelyn Pearson, founder of the Scholarship System, where we help families redefine paying for college so that they can do that. They can avoid that debt, or at the minimum, they can minimize what they have to borrow. Now, we primarily focus on scholarships, but there are so many strategies out there. And so, again, that's why you want to make sure you hit subscribe because every single week we release a new one. Now, carrying student loan debt, it can impact many facets of a student's life. This can affect their credit score, which most people know that credit scores can really impact so many different areas, whether they want to buy a car, borrow money to pay for the car. The worse the credit score, the higher the interest rate, the more they pay. Same with getting a mortgage to a home. They might get a less desirable interest rate, or they may just not be approved at all, and therefore they'll end up renting and not really building up any kind of asset in their name. It can affect phone bills, utilities. The credit score really does have an impact on so many different things beyond just borrowing money. Renting an apartment, sometimes they require credit checks. Now, that said, if a student is claiming bankruptcy, or if a graduate is claiming bankruptcy, or if parents who co-signed are, very rarely can it be eliminated. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it is very difficult to get rid of. The other thing is just the financial constraints of living with student loan debt, right? We're talking about hundreds of dollars a month that have to go to student loan payments, which means that they cannot go to retirement, to investments, to buying a home, to travel, to whatever it is that your student is passionate about. If we're sending the money to a student loan bill instead, it just tightens the budget, right? And for some students, I've seen them paying over $1,000 a month. It can make life and their financial aspect of life almost unmanageable. Now, the other side of consequences of student loan debt are for parents or grandparents or just anyone that co-signs. If you co-sign a student loan, you are just as much on the hook as a student. In fact, I actually interviewed a family, one mom, she co-signed on student loans for her daughter. They had a falling out. Daughter did not make any payments. She couldn't make any payments because she couldn't find a job. And the mother had to make the payments or else her credit would be destroyed. So this is a big discussion among families, especially when they have to co-sign, but also the consequences. Now, again, I promise I have some good news after this, but 4 million parents and grandparents have had their Social Security checks or their tax refunds intercepted by the IRS to pay on loans that they co-signed for. Now, right now, at the time of recording this, payments are paused, but that is not going to stop when the payments begin again. So we're we're going to be looking at this again affecting generations to come because of co-signing. The other aspect here is that a lot of graduates cannot afford life plus their student loan bills, and so they're moving back in with parents or grandparents. So we've got a lot of boomerang children coming back because of these payments, and a lot of them say that they're not going to buy a home anytime soon because of their student loan payments. So that said, a lot of consequences, and again, affecting multiple levels of generations of families. So before I get into how to minimize these consequences, please share with me in the comments, what are some consequences that your family is experiencing? Is there animosity? Are there arguments, debates? Is it that we've had to downsize homes? What has your family experienced because of student loan debt? Or what are you hoping to avoid experiencing if your family has yet to borrow anything? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to see them. Okay, so let's get into minimizing the consequences. First and foremost, we really stress knowing the terms and conditions. Some student loans are more favorable than others. In fact, I have an entire video explaining unsubsidized loans versus subsidized, and also parent plus loans, if they're good or not. Should you co-sign, should you not? So check out our student loan playlist. We'll also link to these videos. They should be popping up somewhere here on the screen, but also you'll find them linked in the description. So lots of specific videos that can help your family. So understanding, when do payments have to begin? Is there a deferment? What's the interest rate? Will the interest rate increase after a certain amount of time? What is the grace period? A lot of student loans give them maybe 6 months before they actually have to start paying after graduating. That way they can kind of get on their feet a little bit with their new job. So what is that grace period? Who do they contact with questions? Is there someone that I can speak to, or is it just going to be crickets? So this is all information that we need to know before we borrow the money. And that said, I actually have an entire blog post where I go into my favorite lenders. So if you, including the most important aspects that I consider when comparing them. So we'll link to that student loan blog post as well. Another way to minimize the impact of student loan debt is to pay it off early. Some students, they might have a job while they're in college. They might be able to put some payments, some money towards the payments or towards their principal while they're still in school. And that way, once they graduate, they don't have as much to pay back. I've also seen families where they agree they'll pay the interest while they're in college. That way, when they graduate, the only amount they owe at that point is what they borrowed, not what they borrowed and accumulated in interest. So I have a whole video explaining how does interest work, but that interest is rolled into the borrowed amount and then you pay interest on interest. It's a whole thing. But that said, so paying interest while in college can actually save a lot of money. It can have a snowball effect. So any kind of extra funds that we can do in order to pay them off while we're in school, but also after school. Maybe bonuses that we receive, tax refunds we receive, money from friends and family, gifts that we receive, whatever we can do just to get rid of that debt as soon as possible. Now, the third way to minimize the consequences of student loan debt is, of course, just not to borrow in the first place. I know that is easier said than done, but that is why we do what we do at the scholarship system. It's to give families options here. It can be things like finding a cheaper school, doing a bridge program like at a community college and then transferring to a big school. It could be working a part-time versus full-time job while going to school. Comparing the ROI, the return on investment of a degree in a university before making the decision to go to a certain school. You would be amazed at how many fantastic universities are just not on students' radar, but yet they're such a better financial option for them, and it's actually a personal fit as well. One example here is actually one of our members. They followed our lesson about finding a financial fit for college, and they discovered that Duke was actually not only reasonable for them, but they could get through it without borrowing a penny of debt. So by following the financial fit for choosing colleges and universities, it doesn't mean a student has to go to a less than school or one that they don't like. It could actually uncover an amazing school without them even realizing it. And going off of that, A lot of students, they get scholarships for college. If that's something that your family is willing to do, which if you're watching this video, I'm going to guess that it is, you need to attend my free training on our 6 steps to securing scholarships quickly for college. I cover strategies that can be used early in high school, 9th, 10th, 11th grade, for sure senior year, but also the years while they're in college. So this is securing scholarships is a strategy they can use for really 8 years if they want to, and even longer if they stay a little longer. So make sure to check out that free training. Again, I'll link to that in the description as well. There are also state and federal grants. There's money through FAFSA. There are payment plans on ways, so maybe we can make the payments gradually. Maybe we don't have the money all up front, but we could swing the bill if we did a payment plan. So like I'm throwing so many different strategies at you, and this is why you need to hit subscribe, because every week we release a new strategy like the ones I'm sharing here and in much more detail. But my point here is that if there is anything we can do to avoid borrowing it, that is of course our best line of defense when it comes to avoiding all these consequences. So that said, the consequences of student debt, they are everywhere. They're affecting not just the borrowers, but their parents, their grandparents, their children. We have some parents that are still paying on their loans when their students are borrowing money. In fact, it takes on average 21 years to pay back student loans right now. So this is affecting students for decades. So if there's anything we can do to avoid that, we should be doing that. And again, that's why you're here. That's why you're watching these videos. But I hope this just opens up your mind and shows how serious the decision to borrow the money can be. All right, that said, I have a whole playlist on student loans. Make sure you check it out. I have a whole playlist on scholarships. Make sure you check it out. And make sure you check out that free training on our 6 steps to securing scholarships. I will see you in next week's video, where again, we will cover a new strategy on how to graduate debt-free. Bye now.